The trauma that your child has experienced, it's not about you. I know you feel shame, you feel guilt. I know that you carry this weight, but your child's trauma is not about you. Your child experienced something in the past that is now manifesting itself through behaviors. It's not about you.
Welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, a show about adoption, foster care, advocacy, and becoming the best caregiver possible. Pull up a chair. We're glad you've joined us. Here are your hosts, Mike and Kristen Berry.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, or welcome back to the Honestly Adoption Podcast. If you are a regular listener, we are so glad you are here. You're joining us for Season 28, Episode 259. And my name is Mike Berry. In case you don't know who I am, I'm one of the hosts along with Kristen Berry and Nicole Jurgis. I'm running solo today because, well, here's what's going on. We are busy at work lining up brand new interviews, brand new content for this show that we are so unbelievably excited to share with you very, very soon. But I'm jumping in here today solo to air a special episode that I did. Actually, it's from a virtual training that I did not that long ago entitled, Your Child's Behavior is Not About You. Wow. Big topic. A lot of you may be here because you're like, tell me more, because I really feel like it is about me. It's not, I promise. Trust me. We're going to jump into that here in just a moment in this episode. But before we do that, I want to tell you about some really cool things that are happening around Honestly Adoption and the Honestly Adoption Company. If you are part of our email list, you're one of our valuable subscribers, you know that we just released a brand new weekly update email called The Scoop, which a lot of you guys are loving because it's giving you bite-sized information, a really quick read to keep you updated on everything going on with the Honestly Adoption Company, what we're up to, but most importantly, giving you valuable resources to help you become the best caregiver possible. That is what we're all about at Honestly Adoption. And if you do not receive the scoop because you are not on our email list, guess what? You can sign up for this really, really super easy. It's easy to get a hold of the scoop and get the scoop delivered to you. And I'm going to give you a really easy way to do that, to get signed up, but then you also get a really cool resource that we have designed, we have put together and designed called the Behavior Response Blueprint. So if you jump over to honestlyadoption.com/blueprint, sign up. It's a free download, and that will automatically put you on our email list, and you'll start receiving the scoop just like thousands of other people all around the world. So you're going to be part of our VIP, man. You're going to be one of our VIPs. Nothing better than that. We would love to connect with you, love to help you. That is what we're all about. And in exchange, we're going to give you our Behavior Response Blueprint, which is our 4 key steps to bringing calm into your household and helping your child re-regulate quickly, plus building a connection with them, which is super important. So that's what's going on in our neck of the woods. And listen, I am excited to share this session that I taught not that long ago on how your child's behavior is not about you, right? It's about something much, much bigger than you. Now, I know it feels personal, but I'm going to give you some valuable insights and some words to help you navigate this. Guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast, and here we go.
As a parent, if you're a parent, and even if you're a caregiver or a professional, I want to start off with an exhortation to you as we spend this day together, as we hang out, some encouragement for you. And I want to start off by talking simply about this, that it's not about you. It's not about you. And I want to start with a question. And I just want you guys to drop this right into the chat. Why are you here today? What brought you to Insight one-day training? Drop it right there in the chat. Maybe somebody invited you. Maybe you heard about this and you were like, "Oh my gosh, I need that. I'm drowning right now. I'm desperate." Whatever it is, I'd love to hear your answers. I'm going to wait for those to come in. Drop them right there in the chat. Why are you here today? What brought you here? And you can be as honest as you need to be, right? Don't hesitate. Don't hold back. This is a closed broadcast. The world is not seeing this. I know it is coupled with YouTube, but I promise you it's a closed broadcast. What led you to Insight One-Day Training? What's going on in your family? What's going on in your home? What's going on with your children? Jennifer says, our foster child has difficult behaviors. Yeah. I'm curious to know, Jennifer, if you are a seasoned foster parent or a new foster parent. Foster care is hard. We know that. Lori says, I work with children under the age of 3 that have suffered some trauma, as well as my own teenage sons have experienced some personal trauma this summer. Yeah. Man, trauma's hard. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday who was just pouring his heart out to me. And, one of the things I said is trauma doesn't play by the rules, right? There really isn't any training on this earth that can adequately prepare us to manage all trauma, right? It just doesn't exist, right? Let's see, man, you guys are coming in quick now. Let's see. Amy says, I have been a trauma therapist for 16 years and I'm just feeling stale, particularly how I am supporting caregivers. Yeah, Amy, I'm glad you're here because I think you're going to gain a lot. The cool thing about all of us who are presenting is that, yes, we are professionals here, but we are also parents. We are on this journey. We are in the trenches. So yeah, I'm glad you're here. Kristen says, I work in foster care and we've adopted. Super cool that you've done both, that you're doing both. Love being able to come alongside our foster families, best resources. And I always want to learn more from my own children. Yeah, you're going to gain a lot today. I promise you that. Danielle says, foster parent, currently do not have a placement, but always learning and preparing our home. Yeah. Also a physician's assistant. Wow. Really cool. In primary care. Most of my patients have trauma history. Yeah. I love it when anybody in the medical field and the education field show up to these training events because you gain so much insight in how to help children, how to help parents, right? So I'm glad you guys are here. Those of you who have come from the medical field, man, a lot of you guys here, I'm working to play catch up here. A lot of you guys are just sharing some powerful stuff here. We adopted two siblings after fostering from 2 years, looking for help with difficult behaviors. Yeah. Jessica is going to jump into behaviors big time today. I can't wait for you guys to hear what she has to say. We brought her in here specifically to this training because of her work with understanding the brain, trauma's impact on it, behaviors. Yeah, you name it. I'm seeing a lot of people in here saying, listen, I'm struggling with like making sense of everything, making sense of behaviors. Yeah, we get it, guys. Listen, I for most of us caregivers anyways, I can say this, right? That we struggle to not take our children's behaviors, even their diagnosis personally. I remember even when we received our kids' diagnosis years and years, more than a decade ago, Kristen and I thought, holy cow, what did we do wrong? Well, it was alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disorder, right? It wasn't something that we did wrong, but we struggled to not take it personally. Yeah, I could someone just asked for the volume to be turned up. Hopefully, let me adjust my mic a little bit. Maybe that'll help. Hopefully that helps. There we go. We struggled, and especially in the years following the diagnosis, we really struggled with the behaviors, right? We shared this with you earlier, but we literally felt like we were drowning 10 years ago. We could not make sense of behaviors. We could not make sense of trauma. We didn't understand childhood trauma. We actually thought that when a child came into our home who had been in multiple foster homes, that because our home was, warm in the winter, cool in the summer, we had supplies we had food in the pantry, we had supplies in the linen closet, that it was a blank slate for them, that they just knew that I'm safe, right? And then all of a sudden we were dealing with these behaviors and we were like, what did we do wrong, right? How do we mess this up? So we struggle not to take our children's behaviors personally. We also feel an enormous weight of guilt and shame and even responsibility for the trauma that our children have experienced, right? You don't have to say this, but how many of you guys, you just raise that hand right where you're at. Nobody's going to see you unless you're sitting in a coffee shop right now. But how many of you guys are like, man, I just feel this weight of guilt and shame and I even responsibility for everything that I'm dealing with my child, right? I'm raising my hand with you. That's me, right? We feel that. It's an enormous weight. And some of us, guys, we even beat ourselves up with thoughts like, if only I, right? If only I knew 10 years ago what I knew now. That's something that we always wrestle with. As people who have spent the last near decade researching, studying, learning all about childhood trauma, all about behaviors, all about the brain, all about disrupted attachment, we still have these moments where we go back in the past and we think, gosh, if only I would have known, you know? I mean, my child, I have a child who has been incarcerated, right? Because of impulsivities, because he can get talked into things, because he suffers from a mental illness. And there are times where we beat ourselves up and think, man, if only I knew, if only I could go back in the past and tell myself how to respond to him differently. Because guys, 10 years ago, we responded out of frustration. We didn't understand, where the behaviors were coming from. We literally thought this is a bad kid behaving badly. We didn't know that this child's behavior was actually the way that he was expressing an unmet need. That this was the way that he was articulating what happened to him in the past. It was actually a window in the past. We didn't know any of that. So we reacted the way our parents would have reacted to us, right? It's like, and I'm not saying we smacked him. I'm just saying, crack down, right? And it didn't work. And we thought, now fast forward 10 years later, we think, oh my gosh, if I could just go back and tell myself that this is not a bad kid behaving badly. This is a child who has gone through something that I don't understand. This is a child whose brain has been altered by trauma. And this is how he expresses an unmet need. And instead of responding with contempt and discipline, which didn't work, if only I could go back and respond with compassion and kindness and patience, right? We personally beat ourselves up. We think if only I shouldn't have, right? I shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. I should have listened to them. I should have applied A, B, and C, and D that I learned from this training, right? You beat yourself up with that. Or how about this? It's my fault. It's my fault. I did this. How many of you guys, and again, I don't want you don't have to share this, but how many times do we look at our child's behavior? We look at our child's anxiety, depression, mental illness, and we take this all into our shoulders and we say, it's my fault that they're behaving this way. It's my fault that they're acting out in school. It's my fault that they're in jail. It's my fault that they have suicidal thoughts. How many times do we take that weight onto our shoulders? We do that, you guys. This is what I want you to know. Listen, it's not about you. It's not about you. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, it kind of feels that way. But listen, it's not about you. The trauma that your child has experienced, it's not about you, right? I know you feel shame, you feel guilt. I know that you carry this weight, but your child's trauma is not about you. Your child experienced something in the past that is now manifesting itself through behaviors. It's not about you. Their behavior is not about you. Now, listen, some of you guys may be thinking, you're sitting there right there and you're like, Mike, you don't know what happened just this morning, right? Or maybe you are reacting, you're overreacting. Guys, we work with families all the time through our coaching programs, through Oasis, through our Trauma Knowledge Masterclass, who come to us because they're like, I'm doing this wrong. I need help to learn a different strategy, right? We have these conversations where we're like, listen, Okay, so maybe you're reacting the wrong way and it is escalating behavior. I've been there. Guys, guilty right here. That was us 10 years ago. But I'm telling you something. Remember this. Take a step back. Remind yourself their behavior is a window into something bigger than what's happening right now, right? I am bouncing. I'm looking at the clock, bouncing off the walls that in 15 minutes, Jessica Sinarski is going to dive deep with you guys into behaviors, right? It's going to be transformational for you guys, but their behavior is not about you. Rejection. Ooh, wow. I said it, the R word, right? What all of us are dealing with. Kristen and I drove to, we're actually in downtown Indianapolis, at our apartment in the city, broadcasting right now. We were driving here this morning, wrestling over the fact that we have dealt with some serious rejection from one of our older kids. And we have to look at each other and say, we know it's not about us. We know it's not about us. It just feels like it. And that's what some of you guys are thinking. But whoa, Mike, how can this be? Their behavior, the rejection, the attitude, the angst, it's all pointed at me. It feels like it's about me, right? And guys, let's be honest. It does feel personal. Our children's behavior, the rejection that we feel from some of our children, from some of your children that you feel, it does feel personal. Listen, in no way, shape, or form am I sitting before you saying that it's not about you and you should not take this personally. Yeah, it does feel personal. And here's why. It feels personal because you are human. Remember that. I'm going to talk about our humanity here in just a moment, and share a really powerful quote and a really good book that you need to pick up. It's about, and a lot of it has to do with our humanity, but guys, it feels personal because you are human. I am human. Guess what? Just beneath these clothes is flesh and blood, right? And a heart that is wired to care and to love, and you have the same in your heart, right? Or beneath the layers of clothing, right? Flesh and blood, heart, human being, created to love, created to be in a relationship, to receive the same relationship and love that we're putting out, right? We're human. We are not some divine presence. Newsflash, right? We are not God. We take these things personally. Our love is conditional. It's hard to be rejected. It's hard to face that constant stiff arm from our child, right? You're human. You entered this journey out of love. You did. And I know that some of you guys are wrestling, and you may look at me and say, Mike, I know I do love this child. I just don't feel it. I get it. Guys, much like Marna shared just a little bit ago, we have been through the ringer. She has created capable weighted products, like, as we said, personally for her and for her child in her own home. This is hard stuff. This is really hard stuff. You entered this journey because there is love in your heart. You love your child. Even if you don't feel like it, you would do anything in the world for this child. Even when this child is rejecting you and pushing you away, you still love this child, right? You entered out of love. Let's be honest, healthy relationships are reciprocal, right? We are flesh and blood human beings, but when we enter into relationships, and healthy relationships are supposed to be reciprocal, right? And then now suddenly we're trying to love this child. We're trying to care for this child. And yet there's no reciprocity, right? It's not coming back around to us. And that's hard as humans, right? Because our best friendships, our marriages, our significant relationships, our partnerships are based on love, and they're based on reciprocity, right? Kristen and I love each other, but we know that our love is reciprocal. It has to, we give and we take, right? That's the definition of a healthy relationship, right? It feels personal when we don't experience that, right? You are personally invested. You are personally invested in this child on this journey, right? You signed up to make a difference. You signed up to make change. And now you find yourself in a situation where Every single day you are in a battle. You are trying to make sense of trauma. You're trying to make sense of behaviors, right? And suddenly you look at your investment and you're thinking, wow, I invested all of this and there are no dividends, right? And frankly, there may not be. We resigned ourselves years ago to the fact that we may spend the rest of our lives caring for this child who may not show us any love or care back, right? Again, I'll say it, trauma doesn't play by the rules. You cannot expect that the love that you put out is going to constantly come back to you. Really, that's parenting in general. That's not just parenting children with a trauma history, right? You are personally invested. This does feel personal, right? But here's why I want to tell you, it's not about you. It's not about you because your child has experienced trauma. Remember that, right? This is bigger than what you see right before you. This is bigger than the behaviors that you see right in front of you. Trauma changes the brain. Jessica's going to jump into this here in a little bit and on how trauma it's a profound impact on the brain, right? It literally rewires the way our children see the world around them, the way that they see other people, the way that they see us, right? Trauma changes the brain. It's not about you because the trauma that they've experienced has caused them to see other people differently, to see you differently, to see relationship differently. It's not about you because trauma histories dictate present behavior. Man, if there was one transformational statement that has changed my parenting journey, it's that right there. I have learned to take a step back when my children are acting out, melting down, rejecting me, misbehaving, destroying things, being aggressive towards their siblings, right? While I have to take measures to protect my other children, that's a whole other topic. While I have to run interference and remember that my number one goal is to help this child re-regulate before any logic can take place, I also have learned to remind myself this is trauma behavior. This is a trauma history playing out. This child is triggered because of something that I may not understand ever. Or it may be something that happened yesterday or something that's about to happen, something that's causing this anxiety. It's not about us because we have to remember trauma histories dictate present behaviors. Say that to yourself when your child is acting out, misbehaving, rejecting you, right? This is trauma behavior. And this child's history may be causing the present behavior that I'm seeing. Because of trauma, your child often functions in survival mode, right? Some of you guys would say, man, we're seeing survival behaviors through and through. And I would say, yes, you are, right? We talk about this in our Trauma Knowledge Masterclass when we talk about attachment being like a house. And you got the basement brain, you got the first floor, and you got the upstairs, right? And our goal, our children often function in the basement brain, right? It's not a place to live in. Our goal is to bring them to the upstairs brain, right? And we have to do that through patience, through kindness, through working to connect with them before we correct them. We have to do that by looking at them and realizing this is bigger than what I'm seeing right now. This is not just a bad kid behaving badly. There's so much more going on. So how do we help ourselves not take this personally, not take our children's behaviors personally, not take their rejection personally, and the struggles that we have personally, right? I think first it's by responding to ourselves differently. I think we need to respond to us differently. And let me tell you what I mean by this. I told you about this just a moment ago, but a transformational book for me was the book Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristin Neff. Dr. Kristin Neff has a PhD. She's a professor at University of Texas. This book is a must-have if you are a caregiver. It was transformational for me, but I love what she says in this particular part of the book where she's talking about self-kindness. She says, self-kindness by definition means that we stop the constant self-judgment and disparaging internal commentary that most of us have come to see as normal. And let me pause there and just say this. How many times, going back to that, what I said a little while ago about how, we feel this enormous weight of guilt. We feel like it's our fault. We hear this voice. We're constantly beating ourselves up, right? I'm a failure. I'm making this worse. I should never be this child's parent. I shouldn't have adopted, on and on and on and on and on, right? These disparaging, self-loathing comments that we beat ourselves up with. But so listen to this. She says, it requires us to understand our foibles and failures instead of condemning them. It entails clearly seeing the extent to which we harm ourselves through relentless self-criticism and ending our internal war. But self-kindness involves more than merely stopping self-judgment. It involves actively comforting ourselves, responding just as we would to a dear friend in need. It means that we allow ourselves to be emotionally moved by our own pain, stopping to say, this is really difficult right now. How can I care for and comfort myself in this moment? Right? Let me read that again, just so you've grasped that. This is really difficult right now. How can I care for and comfort myself in this moment? With self-kindness, we soothe and calm our troubled minds. We make a peace offering of warmth, gentleness, and sympathy from ourselves to ourselves so that true healing can occur. Guys, first, we have got to start seeing ourselves differently. We've got to start removing the shame and the guilt and the sense of failure that we have as caregivers. And even some of you who are professionals, you may need to remove this as well. I know somebody said earlier that, they feel stale. They feel like they've stalled out, right? We all get to that place sometimes. Maybe we need to stop looking at ourselves like we are failures and start accepting failures and screw-ups and mistakes as part of the human journey, the part of our humanity, part of the human experience. One of the best things about self-compassion that Dr. Kristin Neff talks about is just the fact that we are human beings and we have got to accept the hardships of this journey as part of the human experience. Stop resisting them. Stop fighting against them and accept them, embrace them. And when we feel like a failure, send ourselves the same level of compassion and kindness that we would to a friend who's sitting across the table from us, who's pouring their heart out, right? If you were sitting across the table from a friend who's saying, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm no good, I shouldn't have adopted, I'm a terrible parent, I'm a terrible wife, I'm a terrible spouse, what would you say to that friend? You wouldn't say, yikes, yeah, you are. Woo, buddy, you have screwed up. You wouldn't say that. You would say, listen, it's okay. You're not a failure. You're not a screw up. Guys, we have got to start responding to ourselves as caregivers, as humans, differently. But second, we need to reframe our perspective on our children. We shared this quote about a week ago through our main Facebook page from the amazing, the immortal Dr. Karen Purvis, who is still impacting lives, even though she has passed. She says this: the goal is to see the precious child that exists beneath the survival strategies and to let them know that we see them. We have got to start looking at our children differently. And here's why we have Jessica and Dr. Anderson with us, because they're what they're going to teach on is going to help us as caregivers and professionals reframe how we see our children, reframe how we see their behaviors, reframe how we see their anxiety, reframe how we see their rejection. Right? We've got to start reframing how we look at our children. Guys, I want to close with this. This is something that we, this past spring, Kristin and I were at Camp Connect up in North Dakota. I saw some North Dakota folks in here, but at Camp Connect, we closed by saying this. Kristin looked at the parents gathered and she simply said, listen, I want you to know you are a good parent. And you are doing great things. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was with foster and adoptive dads from all over the country for road trip. We were up in the mountains of Colorado for road trip, and we said this over and over and over again to the dads gathered. You are a good man. You are a good dad. You are doing great things. Remember that. You are a good parent, and you are doing great things.
Thank you for listening to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, a resource courtesy of the Honestly Adoption Company. To learn more about us, visit www.honestlyadoption.com.